Welcome to Wait What? Sports Biz Chat with DP and McGee, the podcast that takes an often irreverent, sometimes cynical, and on occasion a serious look at the business of sports. I'm your co-host, David Parro.
And I'm Tim McGee.
Well, I don't know about you, partner, but I had a solid holiday sports viewing weekend, which I don't get to do, or I don't feel I get to do too often. College football, of course, U.S. Open, tennis, F1, Women's Rugby World Cup, some Premier League action, NASCAR, the unceremonious opening of the Bill Belichick era in Chapel Hill, which I think was maybe the most enjoyable. I guess after all that, I am a little bit into sports, which of course is besides the point. Because Tim, I want to know what's on your mind.
Yeah, I'm up much too early today. I usually get up when the sun is warm, like 1:30, 2 o'clock.
All right.
Now we're recording early
Just
for
to
us.
listeners, it's not a let's make sure people know what that is. We've done it before, but
it's the greatest comedy album ever.
All right.
That's not funny, that's sick. National Anthem. UNC football. Came for the football, stayed for the memes. Oh, some of the memes that came out. Good Lord.
Who would have thought the college football opening is going to be primarily focused on University of North Carolina?
NFL memes for the win. They had a short clip of Jordan Hudson walking behind Bill Belichick on the sideline with a caption that said, "Can I have $20 for the concession stand?"
Yeah, it was.
Another one said she was leaving it at halftime so she could make her bedtime.
Okay.
Third one said she was already entering the transfer portal. There were some great memes. But you have to hand it to TCU. They're a good football team.
They're a good football team, and I don't know if Carolina. I mean, listen, Belichick is probably right after the game when he said we're not as bad as we looked in this game, but they're not great.
No.
And I don't think they're going to, I mean, FSU comes out of the box as an ACC team and surprises big time, crushes Alabama, beats Alabama handily, I should say.
Yeah.
And so they're certainly, I don't think they're going to be at the top of the pecking order in the Atlantic Coast Conference. But there's so much attention on this. And yes, because of his much younger girlfriend, it got that much more attention. And a lot of people, I don't know if this is because of your, long-suffering Jets fandom and just always wanting anything, involving the guy that caused so much pain for you over the years.
No, I'm not rooting against UNC in football by any means. I do, and I have since he was announced as the coach, questioned the amount of attention being paid to a player. It's not like. So if we use the example of Rick Pitino at St. John's, rebuilding a college basketball team takes a lot less time because you're talking about 12 players. Right here, you're talking about 100-plus players. Even, even with all the attention paid to Coach Prime when he joined Colorado, he wound up, he came out of the gate, did very well, but he did not have a ton of success in his first year. It's very difficult to do that in college football. So I think the expectations were unrealistic. ESPN putting them on, so many times this year and so forth. And they'll be okay.
Yeah, I think the question is going to be from a performance standpoint, is his game going to work there? I mean, they brought in an entirely new roster basically. So that, the coach and general manager of the college program obviously was working overtime to bring this new system and new era to Chapel Hill, and we'll see if it works. But then the Jordan Hudson piece of it's just kind of additional drama that adds to this. But it was an unbelievable opening weekend, I think. For college football, and ESPN launched with their Emmy award-winning college GameDay program, which seems to be better than ever. And they were able to send off 90-year-old Lee Corso going 100% in his predictions. I mean, this was unbelievable. And he not only got the Texas-Ohio State game right, which I think a lot of people, really did think that Ohio State could beat them, because we don't know anything really about Texas. We don't know if Arch Manning is all that he's cracked up to be. But on the business side of this, they averaged 3.5 million viewers. And that team now is even, I think, continues to get stronger. I think the Saban against, with McAfee works better now. Corso obviously is getting old. His speech isn't quite as good, but he was still there. And the respect and the tribute they paid him for all of the years that he helped make this thing special, this college game day special, was unbelievable. And Fox, with their big noon kickoff, actually cut in and gave tribute to that. Now, the biggest story coming out of this weekend for me was this new Fox Barstool content partnership. It's not an acquisition, but it's a content partnership where personalities from the Barstool side will certainly appear on Big Noon Kickoff. And it started, they were also in Columbus for the Texas at Ohio State game. And as we know, founder of Barstool, Dave Portnoy, is a huge Michigan homer, as well as a Boston homer. And he came out with a whole thing that, I think that partnership makes sense for Fox, because they have to do something to try to make their show relevant, because let's call it what it is. That show is not anywhere near where College Game Day is, I don't think. I mean, even with Rinaldi and the Bear they moved over, that they grabbed, that show is not as strong. Urban Meyer is not Nick Saban when it comes to that. And Nick Saban's dry, but when he delivers stuff, he delivers stuff. I don't think Urban Meyer's there. And we'll see if Portnoy wants to be the guy, or they start bringing PFT in or Big Cat in, who I think would probably be a little better in that circumstance than maybe Portnoy. But Portnoy might have loved it and said, I'm going to be the guy every Big Noon kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Game day is the big, the big kahuna in pregame programs, but it's been around forever. So, Fox hasn't had as much time to do it. But listen, they're going after a different audience. They're obviously going to try to age down their audience with their partnership with Barstool and Portnoy. I wouldn't be surprised if Portnoy, given his ego and arrogance, wants to be the guy on every program. But I enjoy that show. I don't dislike that show. I also love Game Day too, though.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I think they had some good matchups. They obviously owned all of the Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night with the North Carolina game, basically almost mimicking what an NFL weekend is like. Of course, we have NFL launching this week on Thursday night, which I think we expect that to be another great season and perform very well. But I thought there were some great, compelling storylines. The SEC versus Big Ten piece of this, with that with the number one Texas Longhorns coming into Columbus and getting beat in a pretty lackluster game in a lot of ways, and certainly Arch Manning didn't have the game that a lot of people, I think,
he's being crucified in the media, and I think, like UNC football, he's not as bad as that game let him, might lead people to believe. But we'll see. We'll see how he bounces back.
Listen, your guy, by the way, Chase Briscoe, had starting strong in the NASCAR playoffs. I think we have to talk about what's going on with this lawsuit situation between 23XI and Front Row Motorsports and NASCAR. It's gotten worse because it's gone public.
It's gotten personal and gone public, and those two things together, those two things are not a recipe for parties coming together in a lawsuit.
So U.S. District Judge Kenneth Bell, the western portion of North Carolina, is the person presiding over this. He seems to be pleading with these parties, right, to settle this thing. It's scheduled to go to actual trial on December 1st of this year. But both parties seem very dug in. I don't know if these things that have been revealed, which included some very, what sounds like some animus, I'm not sure they were necessarily intended that included communication between Michael Jordan and Curtis Polk. Past guest Steve Luletta had a text that was in there that we don't know what the context of that was. So I don't want to cast aspersions on that, but they were the type of things that the other side will take a look at and say, see what they're doing. And then there was another interesting one from NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell, I think to Steve Phelps, the commissioner, saying that they were worried about what the original draft of the charter agreement looked like, because it looked like it was going back to those old days where the drivers were just basically almost indentured service, or the teams were basically indentured servants. And it was, they were worried about that. But that shows kind of the evolution that I think that Phelps and O'Donnell are trying to bring to NASCAR. And Jim France, who is the brother of Bill France Jr., the former head of NASCAR, Jim now sits as the chair. And, he's very dug in on this. And I think a lot of people think that change won't happen until, he is out of that role. And that's basically what Jake Luletta had commented on. I think we have to go ahead and report that. But yeah, I mean, and it seems like Michael is ready to say, hey, we won't race. That's fine. NASCAR is saying, hey, we'll get rid of these. We're not going to sell more. So those are the charters. If you don't have those charters, they'll end up being sold. And the judge is basically saying, like, solve this thing, because if this thing goes bad, NASCAR's changed forever.
It's interesting to hear Michael take that position, given the fact that his two drivers are 4th and 6th in the playoff points right now. After, granted after one race, but you mentioned Chase Briscoe. He won the race in Darlington this weekend. He's on top of the standings right now, but there's still a lot of racing to be done. And either Tyler Reddick or Bubba Wallace, are not out of it yet by any stretch of the imagination. So for Michael to take that position, maybe it's negotiating at this point. But I don't know what that particular position, how that serves. Right, because if you think about private equity in sports, there's probably a ton of private equity out there that's thinking, who do we talk to if 2311 and Front Row are no longer, part of the charter system? Who do we talk to about standing up a team? Mm-hmm. Because NASCAR is back, in my estimation, as a viable investment for anybody who wants to own a race team. If you do it right, of course. I'm not suggesting that it's easy.
Yeah, and the tough thing is, in a way, is that, MJ is the perfect owner, right? He was the perfect owner at a perfect time for NASCAR to come in with his global fame, his passion for the sport, and, to be the one that's kind of leading this charge against is tough. Now, one of the things where I think that the teams have a decent angle is because NASCAR has put in place a lot of things that would make it difficult for someone to break off. And NASCAR has expressed, and this came out in some of the discovery, that they didn't want a live golf situation, right? They didn't want people breaking off and trying to start a new series, which I think would go horribly bad, by the way. But I mean, this is a major story to a property, a racing series that, to your point, I think has gotten itself back on very, very solid ground.
Yeah. I don't think breaking off and creating your own series is a viable option. There's plenty of tracks that, used to have NASCAR races, no longer have them. They might become home, but I think it's a question of media and sponsorship support. I don't think it's there.
But that's the issue in a way, right? That's the antitrust issue here is that no businesses are supposed to put in impediments that at least or that create a situation where nobody else can venture into the business.
But if I'm NASCAR, the first question I ask is, how are we stopping somebody from creating a standalone series? Tell us where we're now. If SMI doesn't let people at the track, that's
that's the reason. It actually, I almost, as I was looking into this story a little deeper, I was thinking about the OVG situation we've talked about
Right.
recently and the relationships that they have with these other partners and kind of the monopolistic situations that come up, because that's the deal. They got SMI along with their own tracks basically to say this is what you're doing, and that's what Curtis and Michael and the front row people are, I think, arguing, is that it would be tough to find the places to even race because of the agreements, whether formal or not, have been kind of put in place. So we'll see. That's for a judge and maybe ultimately a jury to determine.
Yep. No, and it looks more and more like that's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Well, sticking on the subject of motorsports, I know your second favorite team behind the MoneyGram Haas F1 team is Team Papaya, the boys at McLaren. But I have to say, what Zach Brown has done there in the last 7 years since he became team principal, nothing short of remarkable. That team hadn't won a drivers' championship since 2008, the first year, or I should say, Lewis Hamilton's first championship. But they just signed MasterCard as a team title sponsor, and we've got somebody coming on the show who used to run sponsorships for MasterCard. They just sold a portion of their team at a $5 billion valuation to MSP Sports Capital. And they're sitting at top. They've got the top two drivers in the Drivers' Championship, and they're way ahead on the Constructors' Championship. So I just think it's, everybody was talking about for a little bit, for a few years, obviously, the Mercedes-Benz Petronas team with Hamilton, and then Red Bull Racing with Max Verstappen. And these dynasties seem to be short-lived now in F1, is my point.
Yes, the performance of the team on the constructor side has been amazing. They have two amazing young drivers that can stick around, I think, for a long time. The biggest question from that standpoint is going to be how to Oscar Piastri, who's currently leading the World Drivers' Championship, and Lando Norris perform together as they go on, because they both want this championship. But Piastri looks like he's somewhat moving, kind of running away with it at this point. But you said something. You said title sponsor. This is the thing that caught my attention when they announced this elevation of MasterCard to naming partner, because the official name of the team is McLaren MasterCard, not Oracle Red Bull, not MoneyGram Haas, but it is classic Zach Brown. And he is the master. You're absolutely right. His connections, particularly to the U.S. sponsorship market, are amazing. I've always somewhat joked about how much more inventory is he able to create to even carve up, whether it's space on the car or access to paddock, because teams get supposedly the same bit. So I was always have been a little confused. How are they continuing to sign, and what are they giving these partners? But the power of now McLaren, which is this unbelievable brand, even though it's not owned by that company anymore, it's 100% owned by equity, including largely the Bahrain Sovereign Wealth Fund, it's remarkable. And I had a good friend, a friend of the show, Andy Clark. I've mentioned him a few times. He wrote me and he's like, "This is amazing. Zach continues to do amazing things." And I, like my typical, have to kind of throw it back. I'm like, well, but that's not a title sponsor. They're calling it naming partner, and they're not even in front. So what will stop him? What will stop him a year down the road for selling someone in front? And I was kind of saying that's a negative. And Andy, rightfully so, says, "Sounds like good business to me."
I would agree with you. So you're hate the player, not the
right.
game partner. That's you.
Totally right. Totally right.
We don't know. MasterCard are very sophisticated sponsorship marketers. So I'd like to think they would protect somebody from coming in above them, so to speak, but you don't know. You're right. You don't know. And I agree with Andy that, good on Zach Brown if he is able to sell that.
I think we need to come back and get Terry back on or ask him the question, because we had that big discussion on what's a title sponsorship. Because this now is gray area from what we talked about.
It's sort of between a title sponsorship and a presenting sponsor.
Right, exactly.
Right? It doesn't have the presented by moniker, but it does come after the title of hell. Listen, I would always
let's come up with a new name for it. Let's be the ones that come up for a new name.
Yeah, I would always love to have Terry back on. You know that. But let's get Zach Brown on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm on it. Well, speaking of F1, let's stay on F1. We continue on with motorsports. And we've talked in the past about the movie. The movie's done, it seems, exactly what everyone hoped it would do from the F1 side. It has been a blockbuster. Biggest movie release for Brad Pitt in a starring role. It's grossed nearly $610 million at last check globally. A huge hit for Apple in this kind of hybrid model where they go to theater and then will release it on their streaming platform. Huge in UK, not surprising. Big in China, which I think bodes well for a continuation of racing in that country, in that particular Grand Prix. And it's, if you look at the stats from a social engagement, which is where I think F1 has done particularly well, they are boasting big numbers again this year. Attendance increases across the board. U.S. races that have done viewership, at record numbers. So, I think that all the things that people felt this movie could help F1 do, because there's been some, is there a softness in the growth, particularly from a viewership standpoint? Things that are legitimate to look at. I'm not saying this movie has necessarily solved everything, but it has shown that F1 continues to be a power, and then all you have to do is look at the sponsorship increases with people coming in as league-wide sponsors and the continued strong activity on the team sponsorship level. Just talking about this MasterCard deal we just were. I think the folks at Liberty Media continue to feel like major thumbs up on this investment.
For sure.
Do we want to go to break, man? We've covered a lot, and we have an unbelievable guest coming up.
2 of them, in fact. Yeah, let's take a break.
I was going to surprise everybody.
No, I'm sorry.
No. All right. Be back in a sec.
It's time for our guest.
So in 3 weeks, one of the truly great events that pops up on the sports calendar every other year, the Ryder Cup, tees off at the legendary Bethpage Black course on Long Island. And we have a special treat today in our guest segment. We wanted to make sure we weren't called homers, so we have both sides of this historic competition covered. Jeff Price is the Chief Commercial and Philanthropy Officer at PGA of America, the Association of Golf Professionals that oversees the U.S. involvement, and Richard Bunn, the Chief Revenue and Content Officer of the DP World Tour, one of the 3 entities managing the Euro side of this. Jeff has been with PGA of America for more than 11 years, overseeing big advancements in media rights, sponsorship, and cause initiatives. Previously, he served as president and publisher of The Sporting News. Jeff rose to prominence, and where Tim and I first met him in the sports industry as the head of sponsorship at MasterCard. Now, Richard joined the DP World Tour in 2018, elevating to CRO last year, and prior to that, spent 18 years with IMG Media, serving in leadership roles for joint ventures between IMG and various global golf tours. Gentlemen, we are so excited we can make this work, and it did take some work. And we're really looking forward to taking a deep dive into all things Ryder Cup. So with that, let's go ahead and get going and jump right in. Again, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to be with both of you, and looking forward to a discussion 20 days away from patrons walking through the gates of Bethpage. The People's Course becomes the home of the Ryder Cup.
That's great, and really do appreciate that. It's unbelievable that this great event that we all get so excited about is just there. So that's really where I want to start, and I want to pose this to both of you. From a broad, we'll start with Jeff and then have Richard jump in on this. So from a broad view, what does Ryder Cup mean to golf, both historically and I guess today in the modern day? And then if you could add a personal touch, what does it mean to you personally, being involved in this event, obviously working in the space and being someone that's been in the sports business for so long?
Well, it is truly an event unlike any other in the sport. It kind of combines the World Cup, the Olympics, a rock concert of the first tee, bringing it all together with amazing passion, tremendous competition, but with the spirit of the Ryder Cup. And, I think back to Jack Nicklaus, the concession that he made to Tony Jacklin, and the sportsmanship that the Ryder Cup represents, and that team essence of golf that doesn't happen that much in our sport. It's a very individual sport, week in and week out. The opportunity for the U.S. and Europe to come together and compete as a team is something that's truly, truly special. And as my friend John Miller from NBC likes to say, there's no place in sport like the first tee of the Ryder Cup on Friday morning. So about 3 weeks from this Friday, it's going to be the most special place in the world to be in sports. Personally, this is going to be a home game. I live about 25 minutes from Bethpage, and the team that has put this together has built an amazing city out at the People's Court, of course, at Bethpage. And just to see all of the various components of this come together, and the opportunity, as much as we compete on the golf course between the U.S. and Europe, the collaboration and cooperation with Richard and his team from Ryder Cup Europe, we've really built something, I think, truly spectacular from an overall program perspective, and building a worldwide corporate partner program and being a part of that and collaborating with Richard and his team has truly been something that I'll always remember.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And I completely agree. I'm just so excited about coming over in a few weeks' time to your home and experience everything that's going to be going on out there during the week. And it will be incredibly magical. And I hope, I just looking forward to it so much. And Luke's now made his 12 picks as of Monday this week, so they are 12 strong now and ready to go. And I'm over here in Ireland at the Amgen Irish Open, where there's Rory and Shane in the field with Luke as well. So it's going to be a great weekend and leading up to when the team come over to New York. But I guess, as Jeff said, golf is inherently an individual sport, and it's very rare we get to come together as a team. And so that just cries out for a whole different level of tribalism and teammanship and everything else. And when those players are not just playing for themselves, it's just such a huge event, and just one that our corporate partners, our broadcast partners, our fans, everyone is just can't wait for it to get going.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, before you ask your question, I have to just share this because it's one of the most significant family stories in my life involving sports, and it was at that first tee of a Ryder Cup when the competition was at Medina in 2012, and it was that brutal, final day, I guess we might say, Jeff, collapse of the U.S. team. But my father, who had just come off of hip surgery, was we had him there, and my brother happened to know somebody that was working as a marshal on the first tee, and got my dad up there. My dad sitting there on the first tee inside the ropes, chatting up every golfer that comes by. And it was one of the greatest moments. My brother and I just sat there and said, this is it could all end now for him and us maybe, and it would have all been great. So anyway, I understand that from a personal level, how great that is. Sorry, Tim.
No, that leads perfectly into my next question for you guys. And Richard, we'll start with you. Why do you think the Ryder Cup engenders so much passion among not only golf fans, but sports fans in general?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the scarcity of the Ryder Cup, the fact that it's biannual, obviously helps enormously. There's a lot of golf out there throughout the year across all the different tours and everything else. And so when every 2 years, the Ryder Cup comes together, and every fan, golf fan or general sports fan, look forward to it because of that scarcity, and it's different because of that. And I think that's a real thing. And a word I said earlier on around the tribalism side, and you're not just playing for England or Spain, you're playing for Team Europe. And I think there's a lot to it that fans from all over the world come to the Ryder Cup. We had, I think, 270,000 fans come to Rome. Rome isn't naturally a golf country, but they all came, and as did Jeff and his team, and witnessed the beauty of Rome. And obviously having one of the biggest sporting events there as well was just incredible. And it will be bigger in New York, and we hope to repeat that and we will repeat that at Adair Manor in 2027.
Tim, I think it starts with the players. And I'm just going to give you two examples. I think back to Rory at Whistling Straits in tears after a very tough loss to a very, very good U.S. team. And over the course of his career, he's come to realize and said in that interview on NBC that there's no event that gives him more emotion or a greater feeling of passion than the Ryder Cup. And then I think to Keegan, who literally has not unpacked his bag since the last Ryder Cup that he was a part of, and as the captain, made a very selfless decision to put team above self in his captain's picks. And it would have been very easy for him to say, I'm going to step into this role. I'm one of the best 12 players in the world. I should probably play in the Ryder Cup. But he recognized that his role and his opportunity was to lead a team, and he put team above self. And I think, as we all know, having been around team sports, the opportunity to be part of a team for players is something that's truly spectacular. So I think the essence of the Ryder Cup starts with the players, their passion for this competition, and then it spreads to our spectators, our fans all around the world. And that energy that you feel on the first tee, you've probably all heard players talk. The most nervous they've ever been is trying to put the ball in the ground on the first tee at the Ryder Cup, because that swing is unlike anything else they've ever experienced, not because of themselves, but because they're part of something larger.
And I can relate to that because I feel that same thing every time I play. If one person is standing behind me watching me hit, so that's great. And yeah, I think the Keegan Bradley storyline is going to be a great one going through, because he wanted to focus on being the captain and doing the job, because that's a bit of a challenge as well. So Jeff, this one's to you. Those in the business, I guess, understand the difference between the PGA Tour, of course, and the PGA of America. But on a broad sense, maybe a lot of people don't. The mission of the PGA of America is to serve its golf professionals and certainly to grow the game. So if you look at this piece of it, the management of Ryder Cup, how does Ryder Cup support that overall mission of PGA of America?
So we're a 501c6 entity, not-for-profit, and every 4 years, our association essentially breaks even through the education that we do, the training and professional development for 33,000 members who are the tangible connection to the game in the United States. For every golfer, 47 million people in the United States picked up a golf club either on or off the golf course last year. Our sport has grown through COVID, through the work of our PGA of America golf professionals. And our mission is to make sure that the game is growing, that our profession and our professionals have great career opportunities. And the Ryder Cup is really the engine that fuels that, both economically, but also in terms of helping to create awareness and interest in the sport. And so, as we put the Ryder Cup on here at Bethpage, we're going to be raising money for our PGA Hope program, our veterans that we support week in and week out, and making sure that they can come together through over 3,000 PGA of America golf professionals who've been trained to work with veterans and who might have PTSD or other challenges. So if you think about the Ryder Cup, it's an economic engine that fuels our mission. It's also something that, from a pride and really representing the ethos of what our members do, it's been in 2027, it'll be the 100th anniversary of the Ryder Cup. And it's something that, between our association and PGA of Great Britain and Ireland, and now a much broader group, certainly led by Richard and Ryder Cup Europe. But at the end of the day, it is something that fuels the mission of 33,000 incredibly proud PGA of America men and women who help people play the game.
So listen, and I do want to do a quick follow-up on that. Obviously, the mission is very important, and it extends beyond just supporting those professionals. Bethpage is a public facility. You have, I'm sure, heard some of the rumblings about ticket pricing and so forth, particularly because of that public nature, I think, of Bethpage, including Bethpage Black. Any thoughts, any comments you can make on that relative to that some of that displeasure?
Sure, David. I think you and Tim have both been in this industry for a long time, and we did a tremendous amount of market analysis on what was the value of a Ryder Cup ticket in New York. What could the pricing be? What would the market bear? And I think that the reality is, if you go to the secondary market today, tickets on Friday are selling for $1,500 just to get in the door. When I tie it back to the mission that we have to serve those 33,000, and every 4 years we break even, we made a conscious decision to look at that market and price it at a point that the market elasticity said Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we probably could have sold those tickets for $1,000 or more. We priced it at $750, all inclusive of food and beverage. So if you're in New York going to a game, you're going to be able to, at a Ryder Cup, have breakfast, lunch, and dinner provided to you as a part of that ticket. You're going to be at one of the greatest sporting events in the world, and it's going to be something that will be a lifetime memory. So we think we priced it accordingly. We obviously took some heat from the golf world. I found it interesting that if you think about when the World Series comes to New York, or a Super Bowl comes to New York, nobody gets concerned about what the price of a ticket's going to be. But because it was golf, somehow, we should be pricing it at a level that would not have been market bearing. I think the other part that we were really proud of, and had always built in, was this concept of the people's perk. We held back 3,000 tickets to be able to provide to golfers from New York, and whether it's the caddies at Bethpage, or the Nassau Players Group, or veterans across the Hope program, we have delivered 3,000 tickets to New Yorkers who love golf, who will be a part of this. And having been able to give tickets to some folks that otherwise probably wouldn't have gone to Bethpage in a couple of weeks, to see the excitement in their eyes, to see that, knowing that we will have authentic New York golfers, the people's course will be represented. But I think we also, from a market analysis standpoint, priced it fairly. The market spoke. In 48 hours, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday tickets sold out. And it will fuel our ability to deliver back on that mission, David. So at the end of the day, I think, we did a lot of homework. We tried to do the right thing by New Yorkers with the People's Perk program. And I think that the secondary market is validating the fact that the pricing structure was appropriate for a world-class event.
Richard, this question is for you.
Yeah.
The Euro side of the Ryder Cup is a joint venture between the DP World Tour, from whom you work for, PGA of Great Britain and Ireland, and the other PGA associations or organizations within Europe. How does that work with so many disparate pieces trying to come together?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tim. So the European side of all sort of the rights and the commercial activities, it's all held in a company called Ryder Cup Europe LLP is the holding company. And there's three stakeholders, as you just said, in there. So there's ourselves, the European Tour Group, which has 60% of Ryder Cup Europe LLP. And then there's the PGAs of GB and I, 20%, and the PGAs of Europe, 20%. So we, as the European Tour Group, take the lead in all of the rights negotiations, commercial activities, and obviously, most importantly, stage and run those home Ryder Cup matches that we have in Europe. So we take the lead on all aspects of the Ryder Cup from an operational and certainly a commercial point of view. The PGAs of Great Britain and Ireland, they bring that sort of historical ownership level to Ryder Cup Europe LLP, and were the founding partners in 1927 as well. So that's really their background, if you like, to it. And then PGAs of Europe represent the rest of Europe under sort of Team Europe effectively. And if you think about it, you know, we've been to Rome and we've been to Paris over the last 2 editions of our home Ryder Cups, and obviously Ireland is next for us. And then we've recently announced a wonderful new venue in 2031, which we'll be going to on the outskirts of Barcelona. So, you know, Europe is obviously so important to us as well. So that's really where the PGAs of Europe come in as well, to represent the European PGAs of every European territory.
Well, we're glad that it's so seamless from your guys' side. Like, you have it all organized, because what we as fans of sport and fans of golf and this event just get to see an unbelievable competition every couple of years.
Yeah. We don't need to see how the sausage is made, right?
Yeah.
Richard and I get to see the sausage being made.
Yeah, we do.
Well, but that's why.
And you're still working.
That's why we like to have good executives involved in this event. So we know that it's going to be done and done well for our entertainment. Because as Tim and I like to talk about on the show, when it comes down to it, that's all we really care about, is that it's entertaining for us and hopefully for a few other people. But mostly we care about us. Okay, it's been fun starting to see some of the ad activations coming out around Ryder Cup, including from global partners. I wanted you to talk about how you guys go to market collectively around around this global partner. We'll start with you on this one, Richard.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, we obviously work completely in tandem with Jeff and his team, and we sell our sponsorship programs and our worldwide partner programs together, and that really was the game changer. And it was before my time and Jeff was certainly all involved in it all. But I think 2018, Jeff, wasn't it? Was the first worldwide partner program jointly, collectively going to market together and selling home and away and beyond cycles of Ryder Cups as well. And that really was the sort of game changer for us in terms of bringing in up to 8 worldwide partners that we have throughout the Ryder Cup, and then through the pyramid of the commercial program with worldwide suppliers and other more local deals that we have. But it's it's such a hot sponsorship platform for us now. For us in Rome in 2023, our sponsorship revenue grew 153% compared to Paris. You know, and again, it's such a hot ticket, and I think with that such global audience and the hottest ticket to have, you know, there's celebrities there desperate to get into the grounds and come and stand on that first tee and witness something that we've all had the privilege of witnessing. And obviously it's such a turnkey solution as well for the activations that maybe we'll come on to next, but the activations that we provide to those commercial partners is completely 360, and it really just obviously depends on what it is they're trying to achieve, whether it's Aon or Capgemini or Rolex, among others. So it's been an incredibly successful program that has been launched, and huge credit to Jeff and his team for everything that they've achieved.
Jeff, anything you want to add to that in terms of how you guys go to market?
Yeah, I would take you back, David, all the way. You know, I joined here in 2014, but really some groundwork was laid about 15 years ago. The logo that you see on my chest and on Richard's chest didn't exist until 2010. There were 2 separate logos for the event. It was an amazing event, but as a sports property, and you know sports properties well, it was really a European event and a US event. And the idea of creating one unified brand then led to amazing work by Europe in 2014. When we went to Gleneagles, I remember I had just started walking onto the grounds and seeing everything in blue, Ryder Cup Europe blue. And I thought, wow, there is something unique and special about the property that we can collectively build together. And so now you see blue in Europe, you see red in the United States, and we then forge a joint program to go to market, which isn't always easy because you've got two separate organizations, but really based on the spirit and I think collaboration and cooperation between Ryder Cup Europe and the PGA of America, we've been able to find 7 amazing worldwide partners, a plethora of worldwide suppliers, great broadcast partners all over the world who tell the story of the Ryder Cup. And any partnership program that gets built, and you guys have both been part of some amazing things in your careers, when you have partners that help to tell the story and the uniqueness and get fans excited, whether it's through media or social media or what they're going to do on site, I think what we've been able to build together in going to market is something larger than probably we even imagined, back in 2010 when the logo was put together as a single entity that created a global sports property. And for that, and to Guy Kinnings, who was really critical on the European side, now running the DP World Tour and overseeing the Ryder Cup, just a tremendous amount of collaboration and cooperation, because we recognize that while we compete, very, very fiercely on the field of play, off the field of play, we're better together.
I have a 2-part question, and Jeff, we'll start with you. We talked about your go-to-market strategy. How do those brand partners positively impact the Ryder Cup and the sport more broadly? And the second part of the question is, and it's a bit of a loaded one, are there particular activations that you're looking forward to this year on site at Bethpage? So Jeff, start with you, and then Richard.
Yeah, I'll start, and I'm going to kind of just go through the 7 worldwide partners. Aon, who's been an amazing partner and really leaned into the Nicholas Jacklin Award and created that in partnership with us, telling the story and the essence of what the Ryder Cup really is all about, that sportsmanship that was in that moment, Jack conceding that putt to Tony, representing everything that's great about the Ryder Cup. And they have helped us to build that into storytelling that is reinforcing in fans the real presence and essence of what the Ryder Cup is. I think about our partners at BMW, such an amazing brand that is going to activate the driving range and then give consumers at Bethpage the opportunity to put a club in their hand and have an amazing experience. I think about Capgemini and their ability to help folks understand, our spectators, our fans, to understand the outcome of what might happen in an individual match. As you know, this is a very different format in golf, whether it's 4 balls or foursomes, where the singles match is very different from the week in and week out competition. And Capgemini's helped us to let fans better understand what may come. Our friends at Citi providing early access to their customers and really activating on site in a way that's going to be something that I think a lot of fans will enjoy everything that Citi is doing. And DP World, a huge partner of Richard's, and I'll certainly let Richard speak to all that DP World does globally to build the game of golf, and certainly everything that we do from a Ryder Cup perspective. It's been great to see these global companies activating on site, but then also storytelling all around the world to help enhance the essence of what is just this amazing event. I think about our partner in Rolex, and what Rolex does in golf is truly spectacular, and the way that they storytell about the history of the Ryder Cup and what the Ryder Cup means today is something that is really unparalleled. And our most recent partner, SAP, has done a terrific job of kind of leaning in and helping us behind the scenes have a better experience for every fan who's coming. As you know, data is a really important piece of the sports world today, and making sure that we have a database and a platform both in Europe and in the United States. Our friends at SAP are leaning into that in a very, very significant way. And so as I think about that portfolio, Richard, if there's anything you want to add, please jump in. But I think about what they're going to do on site, what they're doing in social media, how they then tell the story in media. It truly is the holistic approach that you want out of a partner program that has grown exponentially, as Richard said, over the last decade or so.
Yeah, and I think I absolutely completely agree, Jeff. And if you think about it, as you said, from that sort of fan perspective, Tim, and what Capgemini that Jeff mentioned, but what they've done around that outcome IQ, so on broadcast and for the fans watching on the big screens all around the golf course, and having that match, predictor tool using their AI infused technology and everything that we've leaned into there with them through that partnership, just adds another layer of brilliant interaction for those fans on the golf course and indeed watching at home on the TV.
Tim, how great is it? How well do these guys know their partners?
Well, yeah, no, it's a testament to the organizations and these two, great golf professionals that we have on here.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to go to 2 closing questions. See, it wasn't that bad, right? We made this easy on you guys. But I have an important question to ask you before we even get to our closing questions. Do you guys know what this golf course is? It looks like, like I'm a big golf guy because I have this killer golf shot behind me, right? So I don't know what course it is. And I was hoping you guys could tell me what it is, because it's a photography from a famous photographer named 𝘠𝘕, who does these romance shots all around the world. I'm going, what is it? Kind of looks a little Firestone-y. No, I don't know. What do you guys think? Any ideas? All right.
I just hope it's not the K Club where I currently am, because that would be a bit embarrassing.
David, do you know what kind of tree it is?
I don't. Oh, you do. I'm seeing you do from your.
No. Yeah. The reason I ask is because I was involved in, if you remember, the very first World Golf Championships back in the late '90s, and I was at Valderrama with representatives from the PGA Tour and what at the time was called the European PGA Tour, before it was the DP World Tour. And I just remember standing on the first tee, looking down. And I would have had to use a cue stick and a ball to try to stay on the fairway. It was so narrow, and the representatives from both organizations looked at each other and said, "We're going to have to bring these trees in," and they were cork trees, and that kind of reminds me, the way that tree is overhanging kind of reminds me of a cork tree.
Could be.
I'm wondering if it's somewhere in Spain or.
I'm going to figure it out. Well, she is a Spanish artist, by the way, so there's that. So you could be right. There you go. You're onto something, Tim. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
I was hoping
you're making
golf executives on.
I think it has to be a European course, because I don't recognize it. But
you've been on pretty much everyone.
What's that, Jeff?
I'm going to put that on Richard to figure out. I think it's a European course.
Yeah, I think I'm about to go one down, to be honest.
Sorry, guys. I should have prepped you for that.
And hope for the best.
I could have very easily sent you a photo of that in advance and say, solve it as we're recording, but I didn't do that. All right.
But you'll notice, before David gets to his question, you'll notice he made fun of my arboreal expertise right off the bat.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
This is Jeff and Richard. He like drops things that I like to say, like, oh, he's like he's like Cornelling this thing up a little bit.
No, more Cliff Clavin.
Yeah. All right. So we have 2 questions we're going to ask. It's a little different now with the 2 guests, so we're going to kind of go have you each answer the first question first. And I'm going to start with Jeff on this, and then Richard will answer it, and then we'll go to the second question and alternate. So the first question: how'd you get your start in the sports business, Jeff?
I was really fortunate to be able to get into UMass in their sport management graduate program and be mentored by a gentleman by the name of Professor Glenn Wong. And Glenn really challenged me at UMass. He's been a lifelong friend and mentor. And from UMass, had the opportunity to do a graduate internship at the NBA and be around folks like David Stern and Rick Welts and all of the great talent that was at the NBA in the late 80s and early 90s. But really, UMass was the springboard for me to be able to enter this industry. I'd played college football at Bates and tried to get into sports, and every door was closed, and UMass opened them for me. So I have a great amount of gratitude to UMass, to Glenn, and all of those at UMass that started me on this journey.
You have to be the fifth or sixth UMass grad we've had on as a guest, which is a great testament to the program, of course. Richard.
Yeah, mine's a little different. I graduated from Brunel Uni in London in, I think, 99, some time ago. And around that time, Jerry Maguire, that film was out and was pretty hot property, and that's just what I wanted to be. I wanted to be him. And obviously in those days, that was kind of IMG and everything. So I ran the golf team at university and got a call from the television arm of IMG, TWI as it was known at the time, before IMG Media, wanting some people that knew about golf to get into production and log shots and put barcodes on tapes and all that kind of stuff. So as soon as I graduated, I went there through an internship program and started working my way in sort of TV as a runner and a junior producer. And then I spent a couple of years on the tour at the European Tour with European Tour Productions in those big green trucks traveling around Europe, having just a wonderful time, age 21, and realized quite quickly I wasn't very good at production. And I didn't think being a producer was going to work for me. So I wanted to get more on the commercial side. And I started learning more on the distribution and media rights, and worked for many years for a wonderful guy called Rupert Hampel, who's just recently retired. And he kind of took me under his wing and had a good sort of decade or so learning my craft there on the media side of the business. And they shipped me over to Singapore to start up a new joint venture out there, where I had 8 wonderful years until Keith Pelly rang me at the end of 2017 and said, come and join us. So I've been very lucky to work in an industry that I adore, but yeah, it's been, I've been sort of loyal in golf, if you like, for the best part of 20 years now, and wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, great histories, and some of the things you said, speak to the importance of mentorship and building those relationships, which leads us to the next question and the final question. And we'll start with you, Richard, on this. This one's a little harder, by the way, but it's very important to the educational mission of Wait What? Sports Biz Chat with DP and McGee.
Sure.
So that is one piece of advice you'd give someone looking to break into the business.
A lot of our industry is very relationship driven. And I think if I was starting again, for me, I mentioned earlier, I wanted to get into IMG because that was one of the main, certainly the biggest. And now there are so many different avenues into the world of sport, right? Because of all of the different advances in technology and consumption of fans, and it's not just pay TV and all of that side of things. So I think networking has to be the key, right? Don't be afraid to ask questions. Get on the train, get on the bus, and go to different networking events and try and get into the industry. And when you're in the industry, it's so much easier to move around the industry than trying to get into the industry from outside the industry. So I would say, just try and find a pathway to get into the industry that you love, whatever that might be. And then it's easier to move around. And obviously, networking is such an important part of that.
Jeff?
I would say, building on what Richard said, it's really important if you're a young man or woman looking to enter this field, that you don't just say, I have a passion for sports. Lots of people are sports fans, but do you have a passion for the business side of sports, where you think you can bring your talents as a social media creator, as a producer, as a salesperson? What are you going to bring to the organization? And when you get that first opportunity, do the absolute best you can do in the role that you're in. I think one of the things that happens is people will get their start and immediately they're thinking about what's next. When I think at the end of the day, those that are most successful do incredibly well in each role they have in this industry. And if you focus on being a part of a team, being someone who's a contributor, a collaborator, somebody who's creative and asks very inquisitive questions, and you're learning and growing, and you're doing the best you can in the role you have, somebody's going to tap you on the shoulder, as I know has happened to both of you, knowing your careers, and say, hey, you've got talent. I'd love you to do X. I'd love you to do Y. And that's how you don't have a job, but you have a career, is that you do the best you can do in the role that you have. And somebody's going to recognize that. And then that idea of mentor and mentee, if you're a mentee, I learned as much, probably more from the folks that I was mentoring as I was able to provide to them. And I think that component, along with doing the best you can do in the role you have, is the secret to success in this industry.
That's great stuff. We can't thank you both enough for all the perspective that you've shared, the insights, and of course, wish you both luck in terms of a very, very successful Ryder Cup coming up here in just as Jeff said, 20 days. So and we're not gonna make this a like good luck to the team or anything like that. Just good luck for an awesome event. We're so looking forward to it.
Well, David, if I can just say, hopefully your folks will tune in if they're in the United States to our friends at NBC and USA Network on Friday, and if they're in England to Sky or one of our 180 plus countries around the world that will be broadcasting. And if you're on site, maybe swing by and say hello and enjoy. Make sure you're there bright and early at 6:30 on Friday morning, because as I said, there's nothing like the first tee on the first day of the Ryder Cup in sports, and it's going to be magical at Bethpage.
Good luck, guys. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're back. Wow. Two great guests, David. And I don't know about you, but I'm even more excited about Ryder Cup than I was before. So thank you again to Jeff Bryce and Richard Bunn for joining us. But now is the time on the show where we take a look forward, give shout outs, etc. What's on your mind, David?
A couple quick things here. George Raveling, who's a huge name in the world of college basketball primarily, passed away just earlier this week. Hall of Famer, coach at Iowa, coach at USC, Olympic team assistant, gold medalist, and of course a Nike executive who was featured in the Air movie, or his character was featured in the Air movie. He was very involved in the Michael Jordan signing. Passed away. I mean, a giant in the world of basketball in this country, and it just makes me want to watch this new Mike Tollin, who's a great documentarian in the sports world. He has a new film called Unraveling George, which I'm now very much excited to make sure I see. Also want to call out, because it is U.S. Open time, I've mentioned this before, and I hope I'm not the only one. Chris Fowler from ESPN deserves way more credit, I think, than he gets. He should be mentioned up there with the Mike Tiricos of the world. He's bouncing between U.S. Open lead play-by-play and college football, where he goes down and calls the lead game for ESPN/ABC, and then back to the U.S. Open. And he does a fabulous job on both. He's part of the really the number one team there on college football. That he can go back and just dive in so well on tennis, I think is amazing. So I'm a huge fan, and I've said that before. As far as what I'm looking forward to, obviously we're kicking off. The Bears play on Monday night against the Vikings. We kick off with Dallas and the Eagles on Thursday night, which I think is going to be huge. I'm excited about that. But one story caught my attention, and that's, the NFL came out recently and talked about how much better they think Nielsen is doing to capturing that out of home and the multiple family viewers. But of course, they took another little dig at them, which I find great. So no matter how great the numbers are for NFL, they believe they should be better. Maybe they're right, but they want big data on the Nielsen side to continue to get better, and in their view, I think be fair to treating the NFL. So we'll see what Nielsen responds to that. But it's a business storyline that goes along with the launch of the NFL season.
Yeah, it's a huge business story, one that we should definitely keep an eye on because there was a Wall Street Journal article about it, and now the NFL is coming out publicly. There's a competing company out there called VideoAmp, which was specifically mentioned as a company that the NFL is looking at. I don't think the NFL is going to be happy until ratings show that every person in America is watching NFL every weekend.
Exactly.
and Monday nights and Thursday nights.
Because they probably believe they are. And maybe they are.
Total global domination. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. I'm excited about the start of the season too, because it is the only week I am guaranteed to be able to say that the Jets are undefeated. But a couple other things to keep an eye out for. Interesting sponsorship was announced the other day. Dude Wipes, a men's personal hygiene product. And when I tell the listeners who they're sponsoring, they'll know where on the man's body it's supposed to be used. But they are now the official sponsor of the Tush Push. There's a big part of me that thinks it's very tacky, hokey, cliche, but there's another part of me that's interested to see how they actually activate it, because it's not like they're going to be on the rear ends of the offensive linemen of the Philadelphia Eagles. So how are they going to bring this sponsorship to life? Is something I'm interested in.
Is this an Eagles deal, or is this a
Yeah, it's an Eagles deal.
I personally think it's brilliant. We're adults here. We can talk about such things. We're grown up.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. A little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do it. Another thing I'm looking forward to, Field of Dreams coming back. The Major League Baseball will bring the game back to the Iowa cornfields next year with the Phillies playing the Twins. So that was the first sort of in-season, out-of-market game, so to speak, several years ago where the White Sox played the Yankees. But it's coming back to Iowa, so I'm excited about that. But
yeah, I think these things Major League Baseball is doing are great, like adding some of these games. Obviously, they had the game in Bristol recently, which had some issues.
With the weather.
Yeah, with the weather. And NASCAR is doing these type of things. So every sports property, obviously the NFL going over to Europe quite a bit, need to, constantly look for new things to keep them front and center, create new licensing and sponsorship opportunities. So yeah, I think that's a great partnership.
Yeah. And then obviously US Open finals coming up shortly, but Djokovic playing Carlos Alcaraz in the semifinals.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were pretty excited about the possibility of the fourth seeded Taylor Fritz, the last American on the men's side, still in, that this was his chance to possibly beat Djokovic, but the guy seems timeless. I don't think it had anything to do with Taylor Fritz coming out with his headband, which the Hugo Boss sponsorship, upside down. Fowler kept calling it out and said because he lost the first two sets, he's got to turn that thing around. It's like he's got to rally cap this thing, which he did, and he started, he won the third set, but Djokovic ended up again proving too much for them. Listen, beating Alcaraz and then probably Sinner will be a tough road, but man, if anyone could do it, Djokovic is. It's probably Djokovic, right?
Yeah. And if I'm Boss, I'm pretty excited and pretty happy. You don't know if it was on purpose, but it certainly got more exposure than it would have had he put it on the right way to start. Yeah,
Boss was definitely getting a lot more attention than maybe it might have been otherwise. And yeah, I agree. It didn't necessarily hurt because Fowler called out, and McEnroe and Fowler were joking about it the whole time. But
yep. All right. Well, another great show in the books, if I do say so myself. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate every one of you. If you like what you hear, comment, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us. But until next week, he's DP, I'm McGee, and we'll talk soon.